All right, good morning and welcome to Bedicheck Middle School for our superintendent talk over consolidation and closure TAP plans. And so I just want to thank you for being here this morning and to be part of this conversation and to have a space to ask questions and understand more about what's happening to our Bedicheck community here. And thank you for being here for this piece. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our superintendent. Superintendent Segura is going to come up here and go ahead and get us started. Oh, sorry. We're going to do it this way.
Good morning, everyone. We'll get to the superintendent shortly, but I'll just get us going in terms of the agenda and what to expect from our time together. My name is Allie Gillarducci. I'm the Senior Executive Director of Communications and Community Engagement. So we're going to go over some meeting norms and the purpose of this meeting. I'll do introductions of some of the folks that are here to help answer questions alongside the superintendent. And then we're going to give an overview of the proposed changes specific to this campus, as well as if you recall, on Friday, we released a revised version of the draft plan. So we're going to talk about what changed from the original draft to this next version that we're working on now. And then y'all have submitted questions, many of you, through our comment card. And so we pulled those questions, looked at which ones came up the most often, and we have those prepared so that we can go over those. And then if you have any follow-ups to that, you're welcome to, can be a conversation. And then there should be plenty of time for just open questions after that. And then we'll talk about next steps. So for our meeting norms, we're here to build the future together. We want to acknowledge the challenges of the current situation while focusing on ideas and solutions that make our district stronger, more equitable, and sustainable for years to come. We want to honor time, so when we do get to questions, we're going to ask that, to the extent possible, speakers try to limit their comments to about a minute. That allows there to be enough space for everyone to share. We want to honor each other, so speak to, not at one another. We want to be respectful, avoid interrupting. I will call on people, and if there's a follow-up, we can pop around a little, but we want to try to honor the order that we're called on. Honor the process, so we want to try to stay on the agenda, honor intent and impact, so we may disagree on ideas, but we hope that we can all agree and assume that everyone's here for the same reason, which is to have strong, equitable schools for all of our students. We want to honor space and voice, so if you do speak once, we're going to ask that we get to others who haven't spoken yet before we get around to the same person again. We want to try to stay solution-oriented, so we know that there's a lot of probably concerns, but if we can think about what it would take to solve for those concerns, that really helps us, because that's what our job is going to be, whatever is voted on in November, is then to implement it successfully. So we're looking to you to tell us what it would take. And lastly, we're here to embrace transparency and empathy. We know these conversations are difficult, but we are here to be open, honest, transparent, and as clear as possible. So if you ask a question and you feel like maybe we didn't answer it, let us know, say that wasn't quite exactly what I was asking. We want to make sure that you do get your questions answered. And the purpose of today's meeting, like I said, we want to respond to questions submitted via the comment card, because those are things that came up again and again. We want to have a shared understanding of what is proposed and on the table right now. And then we as the administration want to gain insights that are going to inform potential refinements to this plan before the November 20 vote. And so with that, I will pass it over to our superintendent. And because we have this tree here, we're going to ask that you stay on this side of it so the camera can get you. We are, just so you know, recording this meeting in English and Spanish, and it'll be posted to the website within about 24 hours if you want to share it out with anyone who couldn't be here.
Thank you, Allie. So stay to the left of it, right here.
Yeah, just don't go too far that way.
Okay. So appreciate all of y'all coming out this morning and having a conversation around the plan, kind of all the movement as it pertains to Bedicheck Middle School. And so we want to create a space and a dialogue with you. Before we get into kind of that, Q&A, I do want to kind of have a conversation around why this work and why this work now. One of the things that we've been talking about as a school district between the board and the administration for the better part of 2 years is that we need to ensure that all of our students have what they need to be academically successful, but also recognize that there are many other things required to become academically successful than just what pours into the classroom, right? We need to make sure we have services. We need to make sure that we have programming. We need to make sure we have alignment. And the reality is that in Austin ISD, there are very strong neighborhood schools, but there are also schools where families choose to leave that neighborhood and go to a different area. And when you think about where we are, there are lots of pressures that we have as we move down this path. The first is that we don't have funding. You all know that. State of Texas, the federal government, the challenges we've had have made it really, really, really hard to ensure that we have those resources to deploy where they need to, right? Focusing on students who've been historically underserved. Secondly, we have to recognize that the accountability system is changing. It just is. And if we're not responsive to it, we could very much introduce risk that could take local control out of Austin ISD, right? And your trustees are here to provide that clear direction for the school district, and we need to ensure that that continues. The other thing I would say is, over the last many years, you've seen the enrollment in Austin ISD decline. A lot of it is not, there are things that contributed to that are outside of our control. The city has changed. We've been here for 144 years as a school district, and the city has evolved around us. And our schools are in certain locations, and students move, and there's adjustments, and the cost of living has continued to increase. And so all these things have put a tremendous pressure within our school system. And so if we want to get to where we have strong neighborhood schools, with all of these pressures that we're having to manage, then we have to do something comprehensive. And so this plan includes several elements. I'm going to name them. There's really 5. The first is that we were endeavoring to ensure that we had aligned feeder patterns when this was all said and done. Well, what is an aligned feeder pattern? An aligned feeder pattern is where you have, one elementary school go to no more than 2 middle schools, and then 1 middle school go to no more than 2 high schools. You can imagine where that occurs. Right now we have that in Austin, but it's not in East Austin, it's not in North Central Austin, right? We have middle schools that go to 3, 4, and 5 high schools. And so think about the complexity and the lack of alignment, or how families and communities get broken up when they move through our education system. So we really wanted to make sure that our boundaries and our realignment, our work here, align those feeder patterns. 2, we really wanted to address challenges around our transfer process. Whether it was a policy or a standard operating procedure, there are policies in place that have led to outcomes that were not intended. And so we have to be honest about it. We have to understand if we need to make adjustments, what those adjustments look like, so that moving forward, we have the ability to manage those transfers in a way that doesn't create imbalance in our system. And so you'll see that in the plan as well. 3, we have too many seats in Austin ISD. Even with adjustments in capacity and accounting for all of our student needs, we still have over 20,000 empty seats. Right? To put that in context, that's 3,000 more than the Moody Center. Right? Take the entire Moody Center and then add 3,000 on top of that. That's how many seats we have open in Austin ISD. And so what happens is when you have that many empty seats, it becomes very, very costly because of how we support our school system. And the only way to reduce our costs is to consolidate, right? In 1996, we had about 73,000 students, and we had about 96 campuses. Now in 2025, you have 70,000 students, but you have 116 campuses, And so you can really see that we grew in certain areas and we contracted in certain areas. And unless we align everything, we're not going to be able to provide what we need to our students to ensure success. The other thing that I want to talk about, the accountability system, right? We have to be really honest about our schools and acknowledge that we as a school district have not ensured that our students and our schools get what they need to be academically successful. This is not our students' fault. It's not our family's fault. It is just a series of decisions or indecisions over the last many, many years, like compressed with the pressure from the state, that has arrived to where in this plan we have to be responsive to those risks. And those are risks. When you have, unacceptable accountability ratings for consecutive years, and given how many we have because of how big we are, if we don't manage those correctly and if we don't support those students and ensure that we get there, it could be very challenging for us to ensure local control. And so the last thing I'll say is we wanted to also ensure that we aligned programs in Austin ISD. There are programs that have been built and they have been supported, but over time, because of changing demographics, the student who was the focus or the primary student group who was founded to support that program has shifted. And we talk a lot about our emergent bilingual students and the fact that we have wall-to-wall dual language programs where the student population, the number of students who are emergent bilingual, were meant to be the focus of that program, have continued to decline. And that's because they don't live in those areas anymore. And so if we're going to stabilize those programs, we need to move them and provide access. So I don't know what happened, but I'll kind of go over on this slide. So as you all know in the plan, it does contemplate, you can go to the next slide, Bedicheck Middle School closing, and then at a later date reopening. We're going to talk about what that looks like. Your trustee, the trustees, and I have been talking about what that looks like. We'll talk about timing. We'll talk about what needs to occur between now and then. Once we go through the closure, we have to assign the turnaround plan, the TAP, from Bedicheck to another school. And the way that occurs is by which school receives the majority of the students. And based on where Bedicheck is surrounded by middle schools, Covington will receive the majority. One of the things that we changed between the first plan and this plan, or I'd say one of the things we revised, is that Lively has been taken off the list as a receiving school. And that's really a function of just having too many splits and wanting to align the feeders in this area, not just the balance of students. It was really trying to figure out where we could limit disruption. So we did some work and made sure that we could have fewer schools receiving. The other thing I wanted to say is, on the next slide, if you go real quick to the, so we are looking at, I want to be really clear. I recognize how important Bedicheck Middle School is to South Austin, just to be honest. I grew up in South Austin. I know this area incredibly well. This is an important campus for Austin ISD. But the reality is I have to make changes if we're going to evolve as a school district. But the board and I have talked about, re-envisioning what Bedicheck could be, after we get through these series of decisions and transitions. And so one of the things that I want to be really clear about is I cannot turn around and start a school next year, right? The Texas Education Agency has to approve what that school will be. So there's time, there's planning, there's feedback from the community, there's alignment with need. And so one of the things that we're working through right now is how to put enough definition in the plan so that you all can hold me accountable to deliver, as well as our trustees, but also recognize that there may be things that are not in here that come about by way of having conversations with the community and also having conversations with staff and understanding our student needs. So we'll talk about that. It's kind of a challenging place to be just because we want to provide certainty, but know that if we provide too much certainty, it could ultimately be challenging for us to be successful because we haven't gone through that process with you.
Matthias, real quick,
Yep.
I just want to let you know, it sounds like some students are planning on a demonstration, so
Okay.
they may be making their way here soon, so we can maybe, we can keep going, but I think once they arrive, we might want to pause and see if they have any questions or message
Okay.
that they want to share with you.
Okay. So,
And this is about the updated transfer policy.
yeah,
You wanna
so
talk about that?
we're making lots of changes in our transfer procedures and our approach. One of the things I want to be really clear, because it wasn't clear in the first plan, is that if you are a transfer student into Bedicheck, you will be automatically approved to any one of the schools that you choose to go to of the 3 receiving schools. So if you transfer in from outside the district, let's say you're from Kyle and you come to Bedicheck, and most of your students' families or friends are going to Covington, we would automatically approve that transfer, right? I do not want families to be disrupted. This is already a big enough disruption as it is. So we're making that commitment. If the students go to Paredes and your child wants to go to Paredes and they're transferring into Bedicheck, we would approve that as well. So I just want to be clear that that is a change that we've made. The other thing that we've changed is that if you are a rising 6th or 9th grader, right, let's say you're in 5th grade and the entire time you thought you were going to go to this middle school, or if you're in 8th grade and the entire time you thought you were going to go to this high school, we're going to go ahead and approve all of those transfers and not have the boundary changes control, right? We want to make sure that we let communities know you've been planning, you've been pairing your student, we're going to go ahead and approve that transfer and just make that across the board. We've looked at the numbers, we can do it. Now, over time, we'll have to kind of, we'll kind of get back to a balanced transfer strategy and manage our policies in a better way. But I wanted to make sure those are 2 very specific changes in this plan that weren't shown or weren't clearly identified on the October 3rd release. Yeah, Christine, do you want to walk through this? As far as it's not on that side. This one only controls this one.
Thank you. My name is Christine Steenport. I'm the operations officer for Austin ISD. So I just kind of wanted to take you through the boundary map here. You might have seen a small change, just like Superintendent Segura said earlier. We had our version 2 come out on Friday, October 31st. And so we just made a little minor adjustment really to help with those splits that Superintendent Segura was talking about. So previously we had a portion here that was to Lively, very, very, very small portion. And so when we did that, it cleaned up a split for Williams Elementary School to not feed into multiple middle schools. It also solved for a St. Elmo split as well. So really that is just the change. So you're... Oh, thank you. Sorry, I need to speak up. Thank you. I will do that. So as you can see here, I'll stand on this side so that speaker doesn't get to me. So this is the boundary for Bedicheck Middle School currently. And then this is the new boundary draw. So if you live in this area in blue, you would be zoned to Paredes. If you live in this area in green, then you would be zoned to Covington. And then if you are in this area in purple, you would be zoned to Mendez Middle School. So that is that change from version 1, where we had a little small split up to Lively. And like I said, it changed that to be able to solve for some other splits as well and to make sure we keep the students together as much as we can. So that is the boundaries there. Yeah, you want to go to the next slide? Thank you.
And this is the last piece about the turnaround plan. So I think in some of the meetings that we've had with y'all before about the turnarounds, this is kind of just reiterating some of what we shared before, but in the instance where a school that has a required turnaround plan is being reassigned to other schools, the turnaround plan is going to follow where the majority of students go. So in this instance, the majority of students are being assigned to Covington, so that turnaround plan is going to follow them to Covington, and so that plan will then become the plan of the new Covington Bedicheck kind of combined school community. So once we have approval on all of our plans, then we can start beginning to work with those school communities to make sure that the plan reflects kind of the needs of the combined school community. There will be an appointment of principals. So for any schools that are being consolidated, whether there's a turnaround plan or not involved, there is going to be an appointment of the principal that's actually going to be by our superintendent in December. And that's, as quickly after the vote as we can. We want to make those decisions so that we can then start providing certainty to staff, right? Because the staff, once we have the principal, then they can start working with our administration to start selecting staff, because the sooner we can let staff know where they're going to be, the less likely we are that they're going to feel that anxiousness and feel like they need to look for options outside of Austin ISD, because that is not what we want. So if you have that turnaround plan, there are requirements of staff to be able to stay and serve at the campus. If you're a staff person who doesn't meet those requirements, then there's going to be a kind of a second layer of hiring, where we will do hiring fairs where teachers and staff can see which campuses have availability. And then our effort will be to try to find a place for those staff no later than April. So there'll be a couple rounds of that to make sure that anyone who wants to stay with us is given several options. And then the other thing about the turnaround plans, part of what this consolidation plan allows us to do is as we talked about, it's about freeing up resources, having less resources going toward aging buildings and more resources going where we need them. So each turnaround plan campus, which Bedicheck Covington would be one, would receive around $800,000 in extra funds to be used as that principal and leadership team see fit. So that can be for things like instructional coaches, content interventionists, extra counselors, however that they think that they want to use those funds to best support the goals in the turnaround plan.
Okay.
And that was the last of the information that we had to present to y'all. And so we now have the comment card questions that we prepared.
Do you want to start off with just any questions here before we go to comment cards?
If that's what you'd like to do, sure.
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple questions. So what we did is we have gotten lots of comments, and so we've kind of prompted some questions based on those comments. But if there are questions here, we're happy to start and then kind of just go back and forth, or this is your time to get your questions answered, for us to have a conversation and support Bedicheck as we move forward. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to have you come use the mic so that the video catches it this way.
All right. Hi, my name is Renee Geneva-Renko. I am the president of the PTA of St. Elmo Elementary. Sorry for the nerves in my voice. So we are a feeder school into this. We are split between Mendez, Covington, et al. I appreciate, sorry, now I'm going to have to read. I appreciate all the work that's gone into redrawing these boundaries, and I understand it's complicated, but the proposed changes, which we just saw in the map, it segments this super little part of St. Elmo, and it throws it across the highway, across I-35. Those are the boundaries that AISD did say they would respect with major arteries, and now they are pushing our kids across those boundaries. I don't even know why it's such a little section. We were slated with the last plan proposed to Covington, and that makes more sense. On top of that, Mendez is a charter-run school by Third Future. Is that correct?
Currently, yes.
Okay, so they are not having AISD hired teachers, correct?
Currently, yes.
Okay. Thank you. My tax dollars. Yeah, your tax dollars, they're going to AISD. Why are we putting them into a charter school? So, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I don't want you to leave Allison ISD. So everything that she said is accurate. One of the things I'll tell you is this plan is forward-facing, right? 26, 27, and beyond. So yes, there has been historically an agreement with Third Future to operate Mendez. We're going through that conversation now. I am hyper aware that ALC is located there. I'm also I'm not certain if y'all have heard, but we're having conversations. It was based on some ideas in our board work session that looks at potential moves in order to kind of create the space at Mendez to revert back. It's going to be an Austin ISD school. Third Future was never intended to be a partner in perpetuity, right? They were brought in to do work, and they've accomplished that work. We will take it back. The question becomes what does that transition look like? How do we ensure that all of our students are welcomed and that it is truly an Austin ISD school, but also that we staff it correctly and ensure that we don't kind of introduce more risk. When I mean that is to start up a school, it takes resources, it takes planning, So we're working through that now. So everything that you said is accurate. We are working through it. I am aware, and it is one of those things that if you may have heard based on the last work session, we are working through right now. That is an area of concern for me as well.
I also want to add,
Yeah.
Superintendent Segura, that currently if students are assigned to Mendez, the district automatically approves their transfer. I might be wrong, but I believe it's Paredes, Bedicheck, or Lively that families have the option to go to. So historically, as a district, if there has been a charter in place, we've given families options if that doesn't feel like the right fit for them. I'm going to go ahead and go to the first comment card, and we can kind of go back and forth. So the first one, how can Austin ISD ensure this closure is not disproportionately punishing Bedicheck's student population, which is almost exclusively underserved segment of the district? This is from Andrea H.
Yeah, so whenever we look at impact of students, we always think about which students have been historically underserved. What are we going to do to ensure that they are supported through any transition? They are closest to this work, and what I'll say is it really comes down to us being very clear and very transparent about what is coming, and then spend the energy and resources in planning. Like that is what has to happen. If we wait till the spring semester, or if we wait later and all of a sudden a change happens and we have like 2 or 3 months to prepare, that is going to adversely impact our students who've been historically underserved to a greater degree. The way that you kind of get in front of that is you take the time to thoughtfully plan. What supports will they need? What wraparound services will they need? You know, how do we work with families to communicate effectively and support our students wherever they are? So that is really I think the main point of our response to this question is, because of who we are as a school district, there are going to be impacts to students who've been historically underserved. And we have to get in front of it, and the way that you do that's with thoughtful planning, with student voice, with community voice, and then hold me accountable in executing those plans and providing those supports. Our students showed up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So did y'all have a message that you wanted to share? Or did you have a question for the superintendent? Is someone going to represent y'all? Are you just here to listen for now? And maybe if you think of a question, we'll keep going. And if you think of a question, you can raise your hand. You have a paper in your hand. Is that something you prepared? No? Okay.
Well, thank you all for coming. This is important. You know, it's important that I hear, you know, what ideas, what concerns, you know, what is going through your mind. You know, you all are the reason that we exist. Like, we are here to support students. That's it. That's the only reason AISD exists. And so I know that it's hard right now. I know there's a lot of things that are going through your mind, but please, please, please let us know how we can support you. This is hard, and it's okay to have different types of feelings, but you got to let us know what's in your mind so that we can support you better. So please, please, if you have anything, just share with us. If you have a question, I can stay around later. We can talk.
If you could come over here. You know what, Matthias, if you'll stand over here, I think the camera can get you on this side. Yeah. You can do it. You're doing awesome.
Why are we shutting the school down? Like.
So I'm having to do it because there are 4 really big things that are happening right now that impact Bedicheck. One is that there aren't enough students that live in South Austin between Covington, Paredes, Lively, Bedicheck. And so whenever we think about what it takes to support all of our students, whenever we have small schools, it becomes really, I'm going to use the word inefficient, meaning that it's costly. And what we know is that as enrollment has declined, meaning there's fewer and fewer students, because it's kind of expensive to live here, we have to make a decision, or else I cannot ensure that each of you get what you need to be successful. You need teachers, right? You got to have your teachers. We got to make sure we have programs. We got to make sure that after-school activities, all those things require resources, you know, money and other things. And unless I can find ways to operate in a way that's less costly, I can't make sure that you have what you need throughout your career in Austin ISD. So it's tough. That is why we're having to make this decision. That is why. Thank you. What's your name? Rosabella. What grade are you in?
Huh?
What grade are you in?
8th grade.
Oh, great job. Hey, where are you going to go next year, Rosabella? Ooh, I love Croc. Crockett's amazing. That's awesome. Great job. Pregunta? You got another question?
What's going to happen to our GT classes and our Einstein classes, like geometry?
So the question was, what happens to GT, Einstein? So my job is to make sure that we have programming to support you, right? And you have incredible programs at Bedicheck. And as we move through the transition process, we're going to determine, okay, what do each of you need, at these other schools, and then ensure that we have the resources, the people, the programs in place to be there at those schools and welcome you. Right now, I will be honest, some schools have different programs and other schools have different programs, but it's always based on student need. So if the students here, based on what you've taken and where you want to go, have these kind of desires, or you want to see these opportunities at your school, we, as a school district, make that decision. Programs can move, right? Programs move all the time. I just need to make sure they're there for you and welcoming you when you go to that program. So they'll continue on with you. Great question. What grade are you in? All y'all 8th graders? No, 7th? 6th? Where are you going next year? Aikens? Let's go. Awesome. Thank you. Great question. Yeah.
So we're doing Q&A with the superintendent. We've had 2 students who had questions. I know we had some new students come in. This is your opportunity if you want to share your thoughts or if you have any questions for the superintendent. And we can always come back to the students if we have maybe someone in here. Okay, we'll go here. And then if students think of questions, raise your hand and we'll come to you.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Mata. I have a son in 7th grade and in 8th grade. My question is, why would you renovate the front office and the security if you guys had in mind to close down?
Yeah. So when we started planning the renovation, that was in 21-22, right? Because it was funded with the 2022 bond program. If there are staff and there are students in our buildings, we're going to support and make those investments. But in 21 and 22, if you would have told me that the state is not going to give school districts funding, right, as part of the 88th legislature, and if you would have told me that even 2 years later they would do it, but only to a small degree, I wouldn't have believed you, right? Because of how many school districts are struggling and how hard it is for our school districts to keep up. And so we did not know that we would be here when we started that project. But I also want to communicate that if the school, right, based on our plan to the board gets approved, those dollars ultimately will serve a campus again here at Bedicheck. So it won't be wasted. I never want anybody to think it's wasted. It's important that we secure our buildings, that our students feel safe, that our staff feel safe. As soon as we know that something is changing, then we will make adjustments, and we're doing that. But at the time that project started, we didn't know we would be here. And then I would say, 2, it's important no matter what happens that our students feel safe, they are safe, and we invest when we need to. That's why.
Did you have a follow-up? 1 second. Matthias, we're going to have you walk around this side so that
Okay.
I think we got you a little more length on the mic.
Okay.
One other quick announcement before you finish your question. So if you are recording, not every student here has necessarily a media release for their image to be posted online. We've talked to the media to make sure, but we just want to let everyone know here, if you're capturing students, please don't post those unless you've verified with the staff that they have that media release.
Another question, what's going to happen to the SPED teachers?
Yeah. So I I need our students and our families and our staff to know at no point along this process did I ever say anything other than if our educators and our staff want to be in Austin ISD, they will have a home, period. So what will happen is, Ali spoke to this, but I'll be clearer. We're going to go through a hiring process, right? And it'll be based on the plan of that campus. Covington will have a different staffing plan than Paredes, right? And it's a function of just where they are in their academic journey. That's really it. But my intention is that our students, our incredible students, see familiar faces, that they have welcoming, leaders in their schools whenever this transition occurs. So as these schools hire more staff, my directive is to start with the staff that were already at the campus, right? That's what needs to be addressed first. When it comes to our special education educators or other staff, those are not placed by student enrollment. That's placed on student need. So if there's a student that has a need at Bedicheck and they're going to Paredes and that school maybe doesn't have that unit or maybe doesn't have those supports, Dr. Cherry Lee, who's the assistant superintendent of special education, will evaluate and then place the person or add the resource over there, because this happens all the time where we have students who have different needs move through our organization and then we meet their need at their home campus as best we can. So no special education staff. In fact, we do not want anybody to leave. We want no one to leave.
Exactly.
But when it comes to this special education staff, that's how it'll work with placement. It won't just be based on where the students go.
Oh, okay. Okay. Perfect.
Real
Okay.
quick, did you want to let Dr. Lee, do you have something as well? Oh. Sure. One thing I thought we might be able to clarify is because I think there's been some confusion that, when you're closing potentially 13 schools, you've probably heard that number that's going to create 700 staff who are displaced, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how is it that these 700 are being freed up, but we're saying we're not going to necessarily lose staff. So if you could explain that, I think that might help a little bit.
Yeah. So we have 70,000 students. Right, almost 11,000 employees, and every year we hire almost 700 teachers and educators and staff. Right, so what that means is instead of having to go outside AISD to hire, what we're going to do is hire those and place those who have been with Austin ISD. That's the way that you do this, and so the total number of positions will come down. But because of our size, we have a real opportunity to protect our educators and our staff who want to stay with Austin ISD. And I want to be really, really clear. We are taking our teachers' voice and our staff voice into the process by way of a survey. We know that some educators who have lived in South Austin or North Austin want to have a different experience or maybe teach at a different school. We're going to take all of that into consideration and before we actually roll out final staffing plans.
Thank you. Students, do we have any other questions over here?
You got a question back there? Yeah.
Awesome. Come on up. You guys are being so brave. Good job.
Great job. Whoa.
What other options are available for the school, and what options are you guys choosing to pursue?
No, I didn't hear it.
He said, what other options are available for this school, and what other options what are we proposing to do? Did I get that right? Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So we looked at lots of options before we got to this point. What's your name? Lincoln. We looked at lots of options before we got to this point. One of the things that I want to reinforce is that we have lots of empty seats in all the middle schools in South Austin. And that's just because people have moved out of the area. And there's just fewer students that are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And so when we look at where our schools are, you have kind of Bedicheck in the middle. You have Covington to the west. You have Lively and Mendez to the north and northeast, and then Paredes to the east. And so when you think about moving students, it is really hard for one school that's a kind of a middle school to move all together into another middle school because they just won't fit, right? So you have to look at how to, move the students in a way that creates balance in South Austin. So that's how we arrived at this solution. I would tell you that it is really a function of geography, just where Bedicheck is. I will tell you that before we got here, I looked at, I've reduced our expenses. I've reduced our total expenses the last 2 years by over $100 million. I've reduced central office staff. I am doing everything possible before I ever had to come and look at schools. It's not what we wanted to do. And so we arrived at this plan in that way. And the goal moving forward is to go through this process and then restart Bedicheck into a different program based on what the community and what our students need. So that would be the plan moving forward. Is that helpful? Great question, Lincoln.
All right, I'm going to go
What
over
grade are you in,
here.
Lincoln? Seventh. Awesome.
Hello, my name is Shanda. I have a 7th grader or a 6th grader and a 7th grader here. My daughter went to Ann Richards, and then she came to Bedicheck, and so now she'll have to go to another middle school next year. My son is in the special education, and with high anxiety, I actually probably 100% will pull him out of school and homeschool him next year, so he will not be back. It's going to be too hard to figure out where to put them together, and I won't deal with, the emotions on him again. The math doesn't make sense to me when you say you have empty seats and you're getting rid of all the staff, but you say you're having to go out and hire these teachers. So I don't understand how you're having to go out and hire these teachers, but you have all these empty seats that are coming up.
Yeah, so it's attrition rate, right? So just over the course of a year, you have staff that just leave Austin ISD to go to different school districts. Maybe they leave for personal reasons. Many retire. So the attrition rate, given how big our teacher and staffing group is, just allows for us to hire in that way.
Have you ever put out the accountability for yourself to find out why they're leaving your leadership under AISD?
So it's actually gone the opposite direction. It's actually improved significantly. So
Okay.
right now we're 97.4% staffed. When I first came on board, we were about 86% staffed.
I remember the pay
Attrition-
raise is why I came back to AISD, because
well,
they
so
left the
you
charter
asked
schools.
you asked a question, and I'm trying to give you a response. Right? If
ahead. I got it.
based on attrition between Title I and the Title I schools. So when I first came on board, when we came together, you would have Title I schools who had first-year teachers for a student 3 years in a row, right? And so every time a teacher leaves and a new teacher comes in, getting them on board and making sure they understand the climate and culture, understand our students' lived experiences, that takes time. And then with the professional development to ensure that they have the tools and the skill set to support our students, that just takes time. So we were just
Right.
losing so many teachers in our Title I schools. So we've really addressed that in a meaningful way. It was 20% at one point, now it's less than 2.5%.
But that's what I'm saying. Why did they leave?
That was before I got, pandemic had a lot to do with it. Fear-based culture and climate. Not having principals, strong principals in these positions. When I first came on board, we hired over 26 principals that year. You cannot have
So
stability.
we didn't have accountability being accountable down the line, all the way down.
Again, this was
Okay,
before we all came together.
The next thing, the financial part of it. When schools get paid, they get paid because the students are sitting in the seat, right? So if a student's not in the seat, they don't get paid for that student that day. Is that how it works?
Average daily attendance, yes.
Yeah. So I think that's where we need to go to get the money, because that student is still there when they're gone. That teacher still has to do the work. The
Yep.
student still has to make it up. The school shouldn't have to make a budget based on how much they're going to get from the government and then not get that money from the government because the students were gone. So that's where we as schools and parents, I think, need to go fight for the funding and make sure that we're getting the actual money for the students.
Yeah.
The students are here, whether they're gone or not.
Yeah. So you bring up a really good point. I will tell you that in the last 2 years, I will tell you that has been a huge focus of ours, is increasing, y'all come to school, y'all, our average daily
Coming to school.
attendance. Average daily attendance it's what we have to use to calculate funding. And so let's say that baby Matthias, comes to school, but only comes for 4 days out of a 5-day work week. Well, that we get funded by how many days I'm in the school. But just because I'm out 1 day doesn't mean that our teacher's out. We're
Yep.
still paying for our teacher and our principal.
Yep.
And so in the last 2 years, we've made a concerted effort to increase average daily attendance.
Yeah.
Last year, we finished the year over, 1.3% greater than the year before. And it seems like a small number, but that is a huge number.
Yeah.
1.3%. Now, the way that we're going to continue to tackle it is focusing on chronic absenteeism. But I'll tell you that if you go another 1.5 or 2%, you're going to get $4.5–5 million. We're talking about $70–80 million like budget deficit.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, they should give that to you anyways. It shouldn't matter.
Trust me, I agree
that's where
with you.
I would love
I
to
agree
start
with
the
you.
fight. You know what I mean? Because that's beyond, like, you guys just need that money, period. And you wouldn't have to have this problem. Most of it. For the most part.
It would be very helpful. And there's been lots of advocates, your board advocates, your community advocates. We just know the state and the legislature has not been responsive to those.
Do we take that to the Capitol?
We've been taking it for the last 3 years.
Who has a question? Should she come in the front or back here? Does she, you want her, you want her
Yeah.
to come here?
Can she bring her?
You're not going to be able to walk into homes and tell the parents to get their kids to school on time. You understand me?
Yeah.
You can't fix that. So
Yep.
the government just needs to pay for these students. And the
I-
only way that you can make their lives better is by just getting the money to do that for them.
I agree. It's just that it takes lots of legislators and the governor to do that. And based on what we've seen, it's not likely.
Thank you. We have another question here.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
My question is, I'm sorry, my English is not so
No,
free,
no,
but,
that's bien.
Dilo en español si quiere.
Ya.
y yo repito.
yo tengo una niña en séptimo grado aquí. Mi pregunta es el por qué el cierre de la escuela. Tuve otros niños aquí, los programas han sido muy importantes y de mucha ayuda por mí que me han funcionado para el colegio. Yo pienso la transición que usted está haciendo, usted está colocando por código postal los niños. Mi hija es transfer, no somos de aquí.
Permíteme un segundito. ¿sí?
Yeah.
I have a child here who goes to Bedicheck, and I've had other children that were here before. She obviously says that there's really good programs here in Bedicheck, and now the change of zones based on a zip code. Okay, ¿qué más quieres saber?
También veo que como las escuelas que usted está mandando no están esos programas. ¿Qué va a pasar con esos niños? Como ella que está haciendo sus clases de álgebra, estoy
Sí.
esperando esos créditos como los que llevaron mis otros niños para que ella supere para el colegio. Y no los estoy viendo yo en las posibilidades en las otras escuelas.
What's going to happen to the programs that her daughter's currently in, and she's going to be transferred or sent to another school if those programs are not available there. So that's her concern about
Yeah.
her child going to college and with programs.
We create our programs based on our students' need. And what programs were here were based on Bedicheck students' needs. And so as we move forward, it's really, really important that we transition and we look at what programs are not at Covington that need to be at Covington. What programs are not at Paredes that need to be Paredes, because these students are going to go there and we need to make sure that they have programs in place to support them. Programs move. We, the school district, support the building up of programs and we help implement, right, based on leadership and based on community need and student need. So that's why the transition plan is important, so that I have enough time to make sure that the program is set up and ready to receive your student and that they're successful starting the 26-27 school year. But we will move programs based on student need. That is what we do. Is that helpful? Did I do it? Yeah, we will. I mean, we're seeing this at high school also, where students who are going to one high school who are now going to another high school, wanting to understand what programs will be at that high school that they are now being zoned to, because the school they thought they were going to had these other offerings. And so we can make those adjustments. It's really understanding our student needs, developing a plan to implement the program, and then doing it, like executing the plan. But that's what we intend to do.
She's hoping that the changes you're talking about, the adjustments, that you carry them out.
Thank you. I will. I absolutely will. So the question here was, when do you do it, right? Well, we're in this in-between time, honestly, right now, where once a vote occurs, we have transition plans and frameworks ready to move forward with, but we can't produce those until we get student voice and community voice into it. Because there may be things that are at that campus that should change, or there are things that we need to add, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you what it needs to be. We want to engage in a conversation and say, this is what our students need. And then we execute that plan in the spring semester, hire, make adjustments, and then train, and then move forward in the start of the new school year. So you would not have that now. We're in this weird time where people want to work and plan, but we don't have a vote yet. And so that's how it'll work. So after November 20th, once the vote occurs, we'll move forward, we'll place the principals, we'll then begin the staffing plan, and then come back and develop the academic programs for each of the schools with blended students. Because now we have new students with different needs. Like, it should change. So that's how it's going to work, which is why the spring semester is so important. That's why the spring semester is so important. We cannot make a decision in the spring semester because we will have zero time to plan, and it will ultimately hurt our students starting the 26-27 school year.
Superintendent Sugar, I'm going to ask you to come back around here because we have a student question here.
What's your name?
My name's Lillian, and
What grade are you in?
I'm a 7th grader, but
awesome.
I do have a question. My question is, why can't we, as 7th graders, finish the year here, and for the 6th graders to go to the other school?
So that's
Do
a
you
great
mean
question.
this school year or next, or you mean finish 8th grade here?
Finish 8th grade here.
Yeah. So that's a great question, because I want to respond, but I want to respond in a way that's very thoughtful. There are the state of Texas, right? They're in the Texas Education Agency. They kind of determine how they believe schools are performing, right? And they put these letters, in place. We all know that our students are so much greater than any single assessment or any single test on a single day. But unfortunately, we are in a state that has a different kind of approach. And so the reality that we're facing, that I'm facing, that keeps that from happening is that Bedicheck for the last 3 years didn't quite, even though there's been great growth. I mean, we're so close. Like, academically, it's so close, but from the state's perspective, there's still 3 consecutive years of not meeting accountability. That's the word that we used. And so if we do not make a change and that 4th year comes, then all of a sudden we, as the school district, may lose our ability to support 70,000 students. So here's an example, right? We're right now in a library, right? We love librarians in Austin ISD. We believe in the love of reading, not just reading to be great at a test, right? I hope that you love reading. I love reading, though I don't get to read that much. And there are school districts right now that don't have librarians. Can you believe that? That there are districts in Texas right now that don't have librarians. We made that decision with our board and the administration to say we value librarians, we value nurses, we value our curriculum. We want to make sure that we have control on what you learn from every single year. Like, that's our responsibility. If we do not address the 3 years of not meeting accountability, we could lose the control to make those decisions for all of our students. So that there's kind of like an urgency around it, and none of it has nothing to do with you all. You are doing exactly what you should be doing. It is really a function of me working with the state to try to find this balance. But that's why we can't do it, because if you went 1 more year, then it could be a 4th year, and then that kind of triggers other, what we call them as interventions, but bigger and bigger things the state could do up until taking the district over. Was that helpful? That was a great question. But whenever we can do that, we like to transition students in that way.
Maybe explain that has happened to other school districts.
Yeah, so right now, there are 2 school districts that are currently being taken over or already taken over by the state of Texas. The first is Houston. Y'all have heard of Houston, right? Houston ISD. And then recently, Fort Worth ISD. So Fort Worth is like us. We're very similar in size. We're about 70,000 students. And they recently were notified that they would have what they call a board of managers. And then the superintendent would, there's just different things there. But it happens. It can happen. And we cannot avoid a hard decision, because I want to make sure that when you're in high school and when you're little brother and sister, or this generations of students after you come, like, they are getting an education based on our values in Austin. It needs to be our values. In Austin, we got to protect them, even though we got to make hard decisions, because at the end of the day, like, you all should benefit from being in this community and not being kind of informed by the state. So that's how it's happening. Great question. That's a great question.
I do. Well, like us students have made new friends here and stuff like that. But like, if we all get separated, how is that going to affect us? So, like,
Yeah, so that's where we have teams come in and help, and it's not going to be perfect, because there are going to be, just based on each family's kind of current, kind of how each family decides to approach this, there will be splits. We are trying to reduce the number of splits, right? So at one point there was like 5 schools and 4 schools. We really want to make it fewer, so there's bigger and bigger groups. And then we're also, let's say that you don't, maybe your friends go to Paredes, but you're actually zoned to Covington. What we would say is, if you want to go to Paredes, we'll approve you automatically. Like, I want to make sure that our students, that each of you know, like, as hard as this is, and it is hard and it is disruptive, and I'm sorry for that. I want to make sure that the transition, that we do whatever we can to make transition better. And it's never going to be great. But in that way we can do it. You know, we can say, we can go with your friends. But there's not a way for me to have everybody go together, because middle schools are just a little bit bigger. In elementary schools we can do it, but not in middle schools.
Okay, we are getting close to a transition period, so I'm going to ask this student a question, and then we have one staff person that was hoping to get in before the transition.
Yes. My question is...
What's your name?
Ramiro.
Ramiro, what grade are you in?
8th grade.
Okay.
Do you have data that shows successful rates splitting students up to other schools?
Yeah, it really comes down to, I've seen it both ways. It can work well and it cannot work well. It really comes down to how much time and energy and focus do we put on the transition plan, right? So if we just do it, you heard me earlier talk about doing something in the spring semester. Let's say we did this decision around spring break, and then we got to plan between spring break and summer. We will not be successful. We won't, right? Because what we need to plan is time. I need conversations with you and your students. I mean, your peers, and then our families, and then build out a plan that actually works and test it, and then hire to ensure that it actually is done with fidelity. And whenever it is done well, those plans are thoughtful, they're student-centered, and they're locally built, like they're built with community. Where I've seen it go poorly is when it's a reaction. When we're waiting late into the spring semester, we make a decision and we go and we don't have time to plan. So I've seen it be successful, but only if you plan, you support our students, and go through the process. So it's yes and no. Okay. We control that, though. Yeah.
All right, we still have students, and I want to get to them for sure. Let's try to do as quick of answers as we can to get through.
So if we did shut down, what schools are we able to go to?
So Covington, Paredes, and Mendez. Those are the 3 schools that are currently part of it. Now, the majority of the students will go to Covington, and then the second biggest group will go to Paredes, and then a smaller group will go to Mendez.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, great question. Thank you. What was your name? I'm sorry? Akari. Awesome. Thank you, Akari.
My name is Walter, and I'm in 7th grade, but I'm just curious, like, how is funding spread between schools? Is it like spread evenly?
So it is not spread. So, man, good. Y'all got some awesome questions. Great questions. That was a great question. High five. So this is how funding works. So there's funding from this. We fund based on students and student need. Let me give you an example. If you have large numbers of students, then you're going to have more teachers, right? Because you got to have more teachers to support our students. We fund based on program. If there are unique programs to a campus, like let's say there's a dual language program or there's another program, we would staff based on language. So that's kind of more allocations. Then we also staff on unique programming. Let's say there is a UIL-related program, whether it's fine arts or athletics. If there are enough students that have an interest in that, especially in high school, then we would also fund. So it's really based on student need. Where there are schools that have had just need more support, we actually will provide more staff whether it's instructional coaches, which are people that come help teachers, just support teachers. We have content interventionists, which come help our students just tackle some tough problems from time to time. So yes, there's one baseline based on number of students, and then it goes to student need, and then we make adjustments there. So it is not all equal, but it is based on the needs of the students.
One more question.
Yeah.
So if funding is spread like that, since the school's shutting down because our grades, right?
I would say that it's the number of seats in all of South Austin, right? And I think, and what's put pressure on it is the state's accountability system, which is kind of what they would say is kind of the grades, but not y'all's performance. Like what's.
I was just saying, like, what if we funded like struggling schools like this a little more?
So we do right now. The reality is, it's hard to take the next step because I don't have more money. Does that make sense? Like, if I had more funds available, I would do more. But because of how many empty seats we have across the entire district, I can't offer more without driving our budget down, which creates additional risk. So yes, we do it already. We want to do more, but I need to have money to be able to do it.
And the plan that we're proposing actually does put extra money into the schools that are going to receive students from Bedicheck. So we're saving some money, but then we're reinvesting it where the students are going. Does that make sense?
What was your name?
Great job.
Walt. That was it. Man, you're awesome. 7th grade?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm going to come over this way, Matthias, to a staff person.
Hi, I'm Miss Mendoza, Coach Mendoza. I wanted to say some positive things real quick. I know that the students are leaving and then their teachers are leaving too, but I feel like that there have been some things that have been said in this meeting that have clarified, like geography and accountability would be reasons why Bedicheck have been chosen to close, although the messages out there have been all over the place. And coming from standing in this library as a student myself to a teacher, I feel like I've heard a bunch of information. I feel like I hear a lot of things, but one thing that I don't hear enough consistently is all of the positive things that we do, even academically. I understand that we have some accountability issues according to what the state currently rates our schools, but to not publicly recognize the tremendous growth that we've had in Domain 3, and even to say that we're a campus who's going to go on with a stigma of negative accountability, it's a little crazy not to hear all the positive things about our campus, especially when we have district people asking us, well, how did you do that? How did you do that? And so I just wanted to commend the students for coming in and orderly the teachers for how they did it, but also to say that I know that listening to things that are out there in the media, whether it's from other media sources or AISD, that I don't think we get enough credit for the hard work that we've had to do under the circumstances we had to do. So I wanted to put a bunch of positive things out there for our campus.
No, thanks for doing that. You know, and I think that's what makes this so hard is the compression of the timelines because of how 23, 24, 25 accountability came out. Like when I came here in I guess it would have been fall of 2024, and then again, fall of 2025, right after the year. You know, that's before 23 accountability came out. The lawsuits were still, stuck. We'd seen the growth. Like we were really genuinely trying to build a plan that could work at Bedicheck and move us in the direction we need to, stabilize and get back to balanced. And you're right, there are lots of incredible things happening, not just at Bedicheck, but all across our school system. And I get really frustrated because it is so negative right now because of what we're talking about. But it's not, there are great schools. And sometimes, these ratings are there because of something that's outside of the student's control or a staff's control. And it takes time, and there's movement. We had, how many schools did we have that were 59s? We had like 9 and then 3 more that were 58s. I mean, and the growth that we saw from just 2 years ago, it's incredible. And I see it, we see it. That's why we're coming and asking you. I had you in a room, like, what are you doing? How do we replicate that? But at the end of the day, the state sees it a certain way. And that's what makes this painful. And I'm really frustrated that we're here right now. But I know that if we don't do something, Like the students, long-term trajectory in Austin ISD and those coming after them could be adversely impacted because we lose local control. And it will happen. Like if we do not make hard decisions, it could happen. It happened like that in Fort Worth. So just, I love our teachers, I love our staff, I love our families. I don't want anybody to go. We're here because of many indecisions over the last 2 or 3 decades, I would say. And I hate that I'm the person that has to do it, but I love this school district, and I just, something has to change if we're gonna protect who we are. And I want to do it in an ethical, thoughtful way, like making sure we protect our staff, making sure that we have student voice in the process. But it is so hard. And thank you for bringing that up, because it is true. Like, there are incredible things happening, and there are incredible things happening here. Mm-hmm.
What do you coach? I coach football and track. I coach volleyball. My daughter is a volleyball player, and that was one of the questions. One of the students that left that was next was a volleyball player. There's already 3 teams here. How are you going to? Let me just tell you something about Covington and Bedicheck volleyball teams, because they're 2 different teams. The way the parents that can pay for those kids to go to camp over there, and the way that they serve is way different from these kids over here. They're trying hard. They can't go to camp. They can't pay for extra courses. If they go and try out with this girl, they're never going to make it. And there's already 3 teams here.
So we're gonna.
So how are we gonna put all these girls who really want a chance and deserve a chance to play? And I'm sure that
So, Miss, I'm gonna go ahead, and we have 3 people I know in queue that would like to ask their questions, so I'm gonna go that way. But
I know that
but
question. I want to answer that question, but I'll answer it later.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Yes. Hi, my name is Selena Castaneda. I actually have 6 daughters, all enrolled in AISD. 6 daughters. We've got Blazier, Crockett, and 3 of my daughters have been enrolled here at Bedicheck. To feed off of what Coach Mendoza was saying, there is a lot of positive here at Bedicheck. My oldest daughter, she finished 8th grade in I want to say she was number 1, but she was in the top 10 students, not percent, top 10 students with the highest GPA. She represented the choir all 3 years that she was here. She represented the orchestra, and for choir, let me just mention, she went to Region and All City. Both opportunities given to her because Miss Tanner was here and built that choir program up. Orchestra built by Miss Stewart, who took time out of her summer to train these students and get them ready for the school year. She also represented the volleyball team, the basketball team, the track team in JHS, and like I said, finished 8th grade in the top percent with the highest GPA. She maintained straight A's all 3 years that she was here, all a part of the advanced academic program. She would not have had those opportunities had it not been for the program that only Bedicheck offers. And I know you said that you might, there's plans to move that program over, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Let me also say that those opportunities for her would not have been possible without teachers like Miss Ramos, Mr. Noonan, Mr. Jackson, Miss Tanner, Miss Stewart. I want to make sure I don't forget any of the teachers that we've had here. Coach Parker, who she has not stopped coaching and giving 100% to those athletes that she has this year. There's so much uncertainty, and these teachers and these coaches are giving 100% to the students still. Also, Miss Manhattas, Miss Bryant, staff like Miss Atkinson, Miss Hartman, Miss Stammen, Miss Smith. Last year, my daughter didn't have, there was so much with her schedule, but she still wanted to be a part of her orchestra and her choir and get her Spanish credits. And Miss Hartman and Miss Atkinson made that possible for her. And that is what Bedicheck is. They give these kids opportunity. By taking Bedicheck away, you're taking away their opportunities. She's now at Crockett striving as a freshman. She's in an upper class math class, and in her class, the only other freshmen in her class are from Bedicheck. The only other freshmen in Crockett's upper math classes are from Bedicheck, because no other schools are giving that opportunity to these kids. And she's striving in that. She finished the 9 weeks making 100s in all of her classes. straight A's in all of her classes. Again, and that is from the structure that Bedicheck gave her here at Bedicheck. And yes, the sports, she had those opportunities to learn the sports and play the sports and get her straight A's because of the size of Bedicheck. I know that it's not as big of a school as Covington or Paredes, but because of the size of this school, she had those opportunities. And now, like I said, she's also in the choir class over there, and she's a freshman, and she is the only student in that class who knows how to read music. And that is because of Miss Tanner and Miss Stewart here and their programs that they built here at Bedicheck. Sorry, I know this is long. I also have an 8th grader here on the same path who represents the students. She's a student rep for CAC. She will not be happy if I get this wrong. She is the president of NJHS, and she is also a part of the student council as the secretary. She represents the volleyball, the basketball, and the track team, all while still maintaining straight A's all 3 years in the advanced academic program. And she will be finishing, like her sister, with those 2 high school math credits. She's got a bunch of elective high school credits. She's got the IPC credit, which I heard was also going to be taken away from the program, which it's an amazing opportunity for them to have that because they're able to go into Crockett and take those ACC courses and not have to worry about their schedule and scheduling conflicts. Yes. The other thing, I have a 6th grader here. What are we going to do with her? She's in the same program. How long is it going to take y'all to get that program up and running? And then the last thing was just the location. Bedicheck is in one of the best locations. No matter what direction you're coming from, and me having 6 kids, I come from every direction possible. I can get here in a timely manner. My kids are on time every day. They have perfect attendance because this school works for us. So that's, I thank you for your time, and I ask that you take all of that into consideration and maybe rethink closing down Bedicheck for us. Thank you.
We've got other folks in line. Yeah, but we'll come back to you. Did you want to just reiterate anything with that?
I mean, first off, I'm super impressed. That's very impressive. I have 2 daughters. 6, I couldn't imagine having 6. I love them to death. I think what your students are experiencing is exactly what we want in Austin ISD. And I would say that it's a really difficult spot that we're in as a school district. It just is. There aren't lots of, I would think, decisions that we can make that really bring down the pressure and stress and risk in the system. There just aren't. The budget, the changes at the federal level, the challenges we have, accountability, there aren't lots of options unless the only option is to kind of wait and see what happens. And I'm not going to be the superintendent that introduces a risk that takes Austin ISD away from our community. So the way that I kind of process this is say, okay, well, if I acknowledge that is something has to happen, my focus needs to go into how I support our students, right? When programs fail, it's because they weren't built out thoughtfully. You didn't hire thoughtfully. Or you started something without really understanding kind of the resources required to ensure that it's sustainable. And so for me, that's where the focus is. I don't have lots of options unless I close another middle school. I mean, really, at the end of the day, that's the only way to do this. But from a geography perspective, they're just in different parts of the city that make it kind of harder to actually accomplish and almost impossible in some cases. So I appreciate your comments, and that is part of what we're trying to do as we move forward, is figure out how to do this thoughtfully and transition as best we can, because we want your daughters to get everything they have out of Bedicheck, which I know is not possible, but what we learn and we adjust and we improve and then support the entire city as we move forward.
All right, I'm going to go to this parent here because they've been waiting a while, and then another student.
My name is Sylvia Pena. I'm here because
if y'all knew the ratings that the kids were already failing, why didn't you offer summer school for them? If you didn't offer summer school for them, that's why we're in this situation of you looking at us closing our schools. We have a lot of support. We have a lot of real good academic classes. And if it wasn't for Mrs. Atkins and the tutoring and the ROTC, none of the other schools have ROTC for the kids. And my son needed the discipline, so being in there in the ROTC did help him to be a better person. But there's a lot of opportunities that was here for the kids. But why didn't y'all do it? Why didn't y'all go and say, hey, you already felt, why didn't y'all make an effort for the kids to come to summer school like y'all did some of the other schools? From what I hear was that there were 3 schools that were offered summer school. We would not be in this position if y'all didn't offer it to us. Y'all say y'all care about the students, and the students come and their attendance is real good here at Bedicheck.
Yeah.
It's all about the money, not about the kids, and that's not right. Be honest.
Oh,
You mentioned that it was about the kids being in the school seats, but yet you're not offering them the summer school that they need.
So just to be clear, when you think back about the last couple years, we're talking about 22, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25 that drove like kind of the pressure here, right? So I think about what instability looks like in a system, right, wrong, or indifferent. You know, there were things that happened out of the pandemic, leadership changes that occurred that created instability across AISD, period. As we move forward, you know, I am committed, I continue to be committed to provide the supports as our students need. But here's the other thing is I have to understand what does each school community need, allocate the resources, and then move forward and move outcomes. The one thing I don't want to do, and this is something that is a challenge, is you could make different decisions and you could probably move outcomes in a way that would get you to, you know, to meet accountability, but you're going to do it in a way that perhaps like introduces harm into the school system, right? You can do things in a different way. What we're electing to do is to do it in a sustained way so that if I'm here, Principal Atkins is here, whoever is here in the next many, many years, the system as a whole is still thriving. Right now, if we just react and then, you know, teach to the test.
Strong school for many years.
It has been a strong school.
Matthias, I just want to say something too, because I hear this a lot, that it's about money, it's about money. It's not like when but where does that money go, right? Right. You asked why we don't have summer school. The 3 schools that got summer school, we literally had to dip into our fund balance because we don't have enough money to do it. We had to literally borrow from our savings to do it. Our savings is dwindling, right? And so when we say it's about the money, it is about spending our money where it will benefit students. Because right now, with so many empty seats across the district, we fix the HVAC on the same school 3 times in 1 year. That's money down the drain, right? It's not money that's going to pay for summer school. And so that is why we are going through this process. And the amount of money that this process frees up, more than half of it is going back into our schools so that we can provide the level of service. So I know you're hearing it's about money, but it's not like the district just pockets that money because we want to have money. We want to free up the money so that we can put it in the schools, okay?
When it comes to education, some of the parents doesn't have a problem paying for the kids' education, for their schooling, for their church, for tutoring, anything that the kids would need to make them succeed in their academics.
Yeah, and I think we as a school district need to figure out, we need to be honest about the fact that not every student has the same need, right? Some students need more, and that's okay. And we acknowledge that. And we actually believe that is the right way to operate, right? Students who've historically underserved just need more resources to be supported. And we have made our systems responsive to that. You know, we have different lists that we use when it comes to hiring, when it comes to placement. There are decisions that other superintendents and other districts probably would have made regarding how many assistant principals would you have on a campus that is a certain size, or how many instructional coaches, or how many teachers would you have in a grade level if you get down to 140 or 150 kids? Well, the math would say you need to go down to 1 and a TA, but we say no, it's going to be 2. So we have spent a lot of energy trying to figure out what is the bottom that we will not let any school go below, right? Because that's going to harm our students who have been historically underserved. What I'll tell you is the agent of change in a school district is teachers, right? And our teachers cannot afford to live here in Austin anymore. We have about a third of them that live outside the city. And so if we're going to compensate them, if we're going to provide the resources, we have to find money to do it. And right now we are just so inefficient. And it's not that any one school was identified because of what they've done. We have incredible schools doing incredible things. It's really a function of the whole in trying to find the seats to pull out so that become more efficient, so that the dollars that we have can go to teachers, can go to programming, can go to the summer school. Because right now, you're right. I don't have the ability or the funds to do it all. I just don't.
It's going to get worse because you're going to send all these kids to the different schools and the classes are going to be overcrowded.
They won't.
Have y'all looked into
Yes.
that already?
Yeah, staffing plans, the size of the school, the student-teacher ratio, all of those things we've evaluated, and that we would have never offered something that we don't think we could have been able to execute.
So just to clarify, the student-to-teacher ratio doesn't change. When you consolidate schools, there's still the same allocations. And in fact, the campuses with the turnaround plans are going to have extra funds. So if they choose they want to have an extra teacher to lower it even more, they can do that. I'm going to go ahead because we've had the student patiently waiting for a while, and I think there were a couple of other parents that had their hands up.
One more. What about
okay.
transportation for them? How
Yeah.
is that going to work?
So our policy right now, so if you're going to Covington or if you're going to Paredes, if you're outside 2 miles, you will have transportation from Austin ISD. Or if you're on the other side of a hazardous intersection, like that might be like a William Cannon and like Westgate or some larger kind of intersection. That's our policy. So the way that it works now, given where we are in proximity to Covington and Paredes, the vast majority of students are going to have it. If there are any gaps, I need to make sure I understand where those are, but transportation will be provided if you're outside the 2 mile radius or if there is a hazardous intersection. And when you get to middle schools and high schools, as big as they are and as how big the footprint is, you see that quite a bit. So transportation will be provided.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go right here to the student.
Was it Isabella? What was it?
Rosabella?
Rosabella. Sorry.
You said you had wanted to give students what they need, but students need Bedicheck.
Yeah, I hear you. This is very, very hard. I want to make sure our students see themselves in Austin ISD, and this is why this conversation is important. So I understand what you need, what our families need. It doesn't keep us from making a hard decision necessarily, but it does help us understand how to support you through it. So thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, I think we have time for about 2 more questions, or I'll go 3 more because I know the 3 of you have been waiting. Okay.
Hi there, I'm Dylan Vickner. I have a 8th grader who attends Bedicheck, a 4th grader who is very much looking forward to attending Bedicheck in a couple years. I guess real quick, obviously closing schools can lead to crowded classrooms, which is not really conducive to the learning process. But my main question is, considering that in the last year, Austin taxpayers have paid nearly $700 million towards the Robin Hood recapture plan to fund other school districts throughout the state of Texas. And simultaneously, the state has a $24 billion tax surplus. How is it not possible to reallocate some of those funds to help, cover this $20 million deficit?
Yeah. What's your name?
Dylan.
Dylan. So Dylan, what you're describing is what the board and I have been fighting for the last many years. I mean, like we have. So the Robin Hood or the recapture, we sent $714 million about 8 weeks ago, and then we spent $56 million about 2.5 weeks ago. And you're right, that money is collected, it goes to the state redistributes it to school districts, but not all of it. They actually keep a good amount of it. The problem is we have fought and fought and fought. And when you are only a couple legislators here in Central Texas, and then every other legislator throughout the state of Texas, over 200, 300 of them collectively between the Senate and the House, benefit from recapture because their school districts are getting something. They're not going to vote to have it be different than the way it already is. Like, that's the honest truth. That's how you get things to the state. You have to have a majority, right, in the Senate and the House, and then it has to get passed. And so I promise you, we have been fighting and fighting and fighting for years around this very topic. We have sued in 2017. 2017, there was a lawsuit. We challenged it in 2019. This time around, we're pushing, but it's not going to change. It's just not. So our approach kind of shifted for the 89th legislature. And we said, you know what? Fine. I get that we're not going to be able to move it because the powers that be, but let's just fund public education. Let's just fund public education better. Let's just do that. You know, let's raise the basic student allotment. Let's figure out how to put billions of dollars into the school system and give districts the autonomy, when appropriate, to spend as they see fit, right? Because we choose to spend it on teachers. Other school districts may choose to spend it on something different. And there was some movement in the 89th legislature. The problem with it is that lots of the dollars were set-asides for certain programs, right? Really kind of, confining how you spend your dollars. And at the end of the day, whenever it all nets out, it ended up being around a $10 million increase for AISD bottom line. Now, teachers got raises, which is great, and we believe in raises. We've done 3 raises in a row. But that is the biggest issue that we have. And another thing I would say exacerbates this is the federal government, the disruption of the federal government. Y'all think that the state's not the only one that funds us, right? Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV dollars all come from the federal government. Earlier this year, I sent a letter to all of our families saying 2, 3, and 4 grants or title dollars were frozen. I had to get 100 people in a room and tell them that the source of funding used to pay their salary is frozen. And I'm not in a position, because I don't have the resources, because of all the things we just described, to carry them, right, without really impacting our fund balance. And so we had hard conversation. These individuals support multilingual education. These people support like all the things that we believe in. And the reality is that I am trying to desperately move us to a place where we don't have to rely on funding sources that are variable, that change like that. And that's why this work is so important, but very, very difficult. So I'm going to continue to fight, but I want you to know why our strategy has changed. It's because, unfortunately, Austin in front of anything makes it to where almost everybody's going to not vote for it.
And I'll just add, with this last legislative session, there were estimates that in order to get our funding up to keep up with inflation, that we needed to get an extra $1,100 to $1,300 per student. And what ended up came out to about $200 per student. So that's and the legislature wanted to celebrate. It was a big bill and it was a lot of money to schools, but it was nowhere near what it would cost just to keep up with the rising costs.
I'll be quick. My name is Maria. I am a transfer parent since, 7 years now. I had a previous student who is now in college. I also have a daughter who is in 7th grade. She was really upset whenever I did tell her it's time to move out. I'm actually moving out from Austin. And I think as a parent, I'm not even have a question. I'm going to give you an opinion. Mr. Segura, you have it really hard. The funding issue is been around, our district for, for the longest I remember, for 18 years, because I also have an older daughter who is 25. And you have it really hard. What I see, this is a district monopoly game where you have to finish it. So best of luck. I think that combining the kids with 2 schools and 1 school is a bad idea. It's happening right now because we also have to close Lemfer to Palm. Palm is also getting close, My kid, he has to wake up at 6 a.m. because he has to get picked up by a bus at 6:40. Parents are not allowed to drop off our kids from Lemfer to Palm due to the traffic for the Palm parents. They're not even allowed to play in the playground. The big playground is not for Lemfer, so we have to build a little playground for our kids to play. Yes. Yeah. So it's really hard that they can go to their gym. They had to build a mobile, place for them to play. That's where they do gym classes. And, I've been dealing with it, since we have to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a transition. They're rebuilding Lanford. I live within 2 minutes walking from Lanford. I'm a transfer parent, like I said, for 7 years. I've been driving my daughter. It don't matter, like she's a cheerleader, she's an Einstein student. I don't know, she's in everything. So yes, she's already cried about it. And what's gonna happen, and what I think as a parent, we're not looking at Austin ISD district as an option now. Charter school, maybe, but to me, it's move out of Austin. My opinion is, I have no idea what you're gonna do. But it's not an option, I guess, combining the kids to school in one, because I think, like she said, the programs is not the same. You get to pick what you have already in your home. You're the visitor, so you're gonna deal with whatever, I guess, the district's gonna go with it, So I'm sorry, but that's an issue.
Can you speak a little bit to when we bring two communities together? I think that's an important point you made, that we don't want anyone to feel like a visitor, that it's going to be uniting the two schools.
Yes, thank you, Allie. So I appreciate that. It is hard. It's just hard. I don't, we've been around for 144 years. This school district has evolved, has changed. There are things that are in our bones that are probably not great things, right? And unless we change and do something pretty significant, we will not continue to be the district that I think we all collectively want. Because there are families in other parts of town that don't have the resources, and I don't have the resources to deploy to ensure that their students, and that they have a strong, thriving neighborhood school. And so it's very complex, and I have to think about 70,000 students and 116 schools, not just one and one and one and one, right? And that's what makes this really, really hard, because these are our students, these are our families, these are our neighborhoods. Like I grew up here. I love this city. I love the school district. When it comes to bringing families together or schools together, we have teams that we're building called bridge teams. And we've done this in the past when we went through the closures in 2019, or modernized campuses where we bring schools together, Norman Sims or Metz and Sanchez, where we are very proactive. We lay it out. We talk about who needs to be at the table. How are we going to honor the history of the school that is consolidating? How do we get the PTAs together? What do programs look like? I mean, all the supports, right? And so that is what's going to happen in this case. And so we have the frameworks for the teams. They're going to be led. I'm going to track KPIs, different data points that I'm going to use to ensure that everything's being done with fidelity. So if there's something that gets hung up, I can address it immediately. And so that's how we have to do it. We can be successful. I don't want you to leave Austin ISD. I'm sad to hear you say that, especially if at least one of your kids is going to go to probably Langford next year, because there'll be a fifth grader when Langford opens in 26, 27. So that would be pretty awesome. And also thank you for sharing me the information around Palm and Langford. I had not understood that as being a limiting kind of opportunity for students in that playground. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be our last question.
Hello, my name is Stephanie. I have a child in SPED and in SCORES. My question is, why advocate and have this get together to express our feelings and concerns if I feel the decision is already being made without taking in consideration our students and parents? Why not count on us before all this? I understand the rules and regulations, but that's my question.
Yeah. So we started this process in February and March of this year, right? We identified the 5 big things we were trying to tackle. Through the process, accountability 23, 24, and 25 came out. And then in August, it set the timeline for when we have to respond. So we were going through our process, which would have been different if we didn't have those milestones, as you mentioned, that we had to hit here in November. We produced a plan. We go through a process to refine and improve the plan. but there aren't lots of kind of big pieces that can move based on the goals that were identified early in the process with our board and the administration. Right? We talked about what those were. If you don't want to align feeder patterns, then fine. But that's something that we agreed to. I'm going to be really clear about this. Like, we have to reduce our budget deficit. We have to. And if we don't reduce the number of seats, then we'll never get there. So if we begin to take schools off, then you're going to be right back here in 2 or 3 years, if even not sooner, like having the exact same conversation, but this time there'll be more urgency around it. It'll be like, zero time to plan, because the district will be on the verge of like insolvency, essentially. And that is another reason the state can take over a school district. It happens all the time. Doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough. Those are the two big reasons, right? Accountability and then finances. I don't want to delay a hard vote for the sake of delay. We've done that. We've done that over and over and over again in our history of Austin ISD. I'm not going to do it. I would rather be really clear as to what we're tackling together, believe that we as a school district and as our community want the best for all of our students, move forward and acknowledge that there's going to be disruption, but if we plan and we love our kids and we do this as a community, we can get there. So that's why we're approaching it this way. Yes, I'm taking feedback. I'm not the one that ultimately will vote. The board votes. But I will tell you that we didn't arrive at this plan or this element in the plan just, without like a lot of thought. And I think you see that in the plan because of how interwoven it is. There are lots of things that we considered.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yes, ma'am.
Then if you don't, like you're saying this is based on 5 big categories, and then if you don't meet it, is the state going to still grade you the same way? And then are you going to be still looking at possible estate takeover?
So this is the 5 areas that I talked about, right? Transfer policies, accountability, inefficiencies, programmatic moves, and feeder pattern alignment. Like, those things are our goals to move the entire system. I will tell you, I don't know that we would ever be able to align feeder patterns in East Austin unless we were taking on all this work together, right? Like, so you think about some schools, like Covington goes almost wholly into Crockett, right? We have middle schools in East Austin that go into 4 and 5 high schools, right? And I think I said that earlier. We as a school district probably wouldn't be able to take that on and align the feeder patterns unless we were taking it all together, if that makes any sense. So if we don't meet our objectives in the plan, will the state take us over? I mean, no, they won't. But what I'll say is, my job is to ensure that as we move forward, we're always moving in the right direction. I would say the further we get away from hitting our goals in the plan, the more risk that is introduced from the state regarding whether they take an intervention or not, or the more risk that we'll have to manage regarding budget in 24 months or 48 months. What I don't want to be is a school district that all of a sudden has all these things, facing it. And what the state will do is come and say, okay, we're going to do this. These teachers are out. These schools are closing. No communication, no engagement. It's done. That's how it happens, because they have to take that type of corrective action because they're saying, you should have done it before. Why didn't you make a hard decision, Matthias? I'm going to make it for you. And my hope is that because we're doing it, it'll be more thoughtful. I know it's going to be painful, but it's done by people who love this school district and love your students, not by the state of Texas. And so we're kind of wanting to, I would argue that there are school districts who are being taken over that wish they would have made decisions years before they got to that point. And what I'm doing is saying, we're not going to get there. Is that helpful?
No. Okay. So that's all the questions we have time for. I think there are some of us that might be able to stick around a little bit longer for one-on-one conversations if needed, but some of us do need to get on our way. I'm just going to go over the timeline. So we're in phase 3 of the process. You heard our superintendent talk about it beginning back in April, but just some important dates coming up. We have the November 6th board meeting is where there's going to be the next conversation about the draft plans that we've presented. So these conversations that we're having in the community. There's also a new comment card that was emailed to y'all and I believe texted on Friday. So make sure that's the new card. If you go to the old one, it's actually going to redirect you to the new one, but we are still collecting feedback, but there will be a conversation on November 6th. Is that this? Wow, that is this Thursday, right? this Thursday. And then the board is anticipated to vote on the final plan November 20th. So thank you so much, everyone. This was a really great conversation. Oh, thank you to our students who left so quietly. And we, again, some of us can stick around if we didn't get to all of your questions. So thank you so much, everyone.